This podcast would not be possible without my wonderful friends, my wonderful supporters from my Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the podcast. What you get is the satisfaction of knowing you're helping me spread the joy and happiness of music to everyone. You also get early access to episodes without ads. I often post unedited episodes where you get to hear the mistakes and the discussions that I end up cutting out of the podcast. So I want to thank the following patrons for their love and support: Paul Appleton, Amy Brooks, David Kotsis, C.K. Westbrook, Sean Poole, David and Jennifer Von Ebers, Jeff Omer, Sylvan Groth, Liz Bronson, Yetta, Steve Hansack, John Munson, Betsy Hodges, Levi Petrie, Elizabeth Brunson, Stephen Malio, Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, Dale Hozek, Terry Smith, Chris Bloom, and Mary Thomas. I just appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for the support. Now, on to the podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. Normally, when I have a guest that's across the pond, we do a timey-wimey episode where it's my morning, my guest afternoon. But Nigel has raised the bar and said, hey, I love Bruce so much, I'll talk to you in the middle of the morning, middle of the evening. So, Nigel, welcome to the podcast. What time is it there for you?
Thanks for having me, Jesse. It's 2:36 a.m. right now. Yeah, like you say, there's no bad time to talk about Bruce Springsteen. Yeah, I'm happy to take one for the team.
I certainly appreciate it, and I'm so thrilled. Let's start out with tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, look, I'm 53 years old, born in Dublin, Ireland. I've been living in Dublin, Ireland all my life. Married to my beautiful wife Ethel. She's my best friend. And yeah, we've two sons. They're two young men now, 23 and 21 years old. Yeah, I've been a Bruce fan, I suppose, since I was 14 years old. Maybe, yeah, 14 years old, thereabouts. And that's probably, so 40 years of listening to Bruce has taken me to where I am today, which is by day, I'm an accountant, but by night, I'm the lead singer in Ireland's original and longest serving Bruce Springsteen tribute band. We're called the Human Touch. So that's a little bit,
Nice.
yeah, that's a little bit about who I am right now. Yeah, but yeah, it's been a long journey it's 40 years of love for the man's music has taken me to where I am now, and it's something I just love doing it. It's absolutely fantastic. Love it.
We're going to get to that. First question, though, is did your lovely bride go, you're staying up to what?
She did say that, yeah. But it's really funny because you know what? She's been so supportive of my love for Bruce's music, my love for Bruce, my obviously my pastime of playing in the band. She's been so supportive. I always tell the story about we were only going out together for about I'd say 2 years. So we started going out in 1996.
Okay.
So if you think back then, Bruce released The Ghost of Tom Joad in 95. And the next release he had was the Tracks box set in 98. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the 2 years that we've been going out, there'd been no Bruce release at that stage. Okay. So Tracks was on the horizon. It was about to come out. And so this was the first real, I suppose, first time I was going to be exposed for what I truly was, right? Which was a Bruce nut. Okay.
Yeah.
So it was the day before release or 2 days before release. And I said to her, look, I says, I got to go into the city on whatever, maybe Tuesday morning, whatever day it was being released. And she said, why? And I said, look, the new Bruce box set's coming out. yeah, no, but can you not wait until we go into the city on Saturday and pick it up then? I says, no, I gotta have it on the first day. I've gotta have it that
Yeah.
morning. And she looks at me and she says, "Oh, I don't get it. I don't get it. What is it? What's that all about?" And he says, why can't you just wait till Saturday? No, I says, you gotta understand. I says, I have to have it first day. So I obviously went about my business thinking my current girlfriend is probably going to dump me now because she thinks that I love something more than her. But anyway, the next day, which was the day prior to release, I met up with her that evening and she says, "So you've got to go and pick up your box set tomorrow morning." I says, "I do." And I says, "Look, I don't expect you to understand," I said, but, and she goes, "You don't expect me to understand?" And she reaches down and pulls out a bag. And in the bag, the day before release, she had the tracks box set for me.
No
So
way.
yeah, so I had it. So I had it pretty much before everybody else in Ireland probably had it. And the reason being, we have a common acquaintance who worked for Tower Records here in Dublin at the time, and she talked to him about it, and he smuggled her out a copy in advance. So yeah, she was a keeper, Jesse.
I was going to say, did you ask her to marry you that day?
On the spot.
Yes. I always think of the movie Fever Pitch, which was based on a book from England about someone being obsessed with a European football team, and the fever pitch they change it to the Red Sox. And this guy, like, and she Drew Barrymore's, yeah, non-season Kim is great. It's during the season. Yeah, I will tell my son this story and he will smile. He often says he is a huge WWE fan. And he
Okay.
said if he could find a girl that loved WWE as much as him, he would probably ask her to marry him that day. Okay, we'll figure out the rest of it, the others. We got this to get us. We're doing it.
Yeah, that's a good foundation to start from. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Nigel, where did you grow up and what kind of music was your family listening to?
Yeah, I grew up in Dublin, Ireland, and I've been living in Dublin all my life. My dad was a huge Elvis Presley fan.
Okay.
Now, when I say huge, have you ever seen the movie The Commitments? Have you ever seen
Yes.
it? Yeah, okay, it's based in Dublin, Ireland, but the father in the family, I don't know if you remember, he's an Elvis fanatic. There's a picture of John F. Kennedy on his sitting room wall with a picture of the Pope over John F. Kennedy and then a picture of Elvis over the Pope. That was my dad. My dad was just
Yeah.
like Elvis was God as far as he was concerned. He had an amazing collection of Elvis vinyl, which he was collecting since the 50s. He ended up selling it somewhere in the maybe late 80s, and collectors came from all over Europe to pick up parts of it. He had so
Hmm.
many originals and rarities. So he was a big Elvis fan. And then, but alongside that, he loved a lot of the other 50s artists. So the Everly Brothers, Chuck Berry, Little Richards, Bill Haley and the Comets, Johnny Cash, that era. So that's what I grew up with and that's what I cut my teeth on. So I was probably listening to 50s music, maybe up till I was about maybe 10, 11, 12 years old, thereabouts. My mother was probably into maybe the tamer version of that. So she would have liked the likes of Neil Sedaka and that
Hmm.
kind of, the more pop version of that, of the 50s and
Yeah.
60s music, where my dad was probably a little bit his liking was a little bit edgier,
Yeah.
which appealed to me a lot. So that's what I grew up with. Yeah. So I suppose I if I go back to, yeah, that when I got when you start getting to 12, 13 years old, then you start finding your own music, you start finding your own identity. So that we're probably talking 1983, and I suppose a lot of my friends and myself, we would have been, you two were just starting to become what I suppose they had released the War album in 1983, so they're about two or 3 years away from Joshua Tree at that stage, but they had become local heroes for us in Dublin. So yeah, pretty much everybody that moved in my circles at that time, we were all into U2 and that kind of genre. So like the likes of Simple Minds and other bands like that. There's a Welsh band called The Alarm. I don't know if you're familiar with them, and Scottish band called Big Country, and they were all of the same genre. So that's what we were all listening to in Dublin, say in the early 80s. And I suppose it was in around then that Bruce came along. And I suppose, like a lot of people that maybe found Bruce, I found them around 1984 when Born in the USA was released. And I'm sure the majority of people that you talk to were the same. I'd been aware of, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't know who, I was aware of Hungry Heart and I was aware of Born to Run because
Sure.
they were probably getting radio play and they were obviously chart hits. So I was aware of them without knowing who sang them.
Yeah.
But where Bruce came on the horizon for me was I have two older brothers, and I suppose like anyone that has older brothers will always inherit some of their musical tastes. But one of my brothers had a friend called here in Dublin called Paul Whelan was his name, and Paul was the first person I ever heard mention Bruce Springsteen, and this is just prior to the release of Born in the USA.
Okay.
And he'd given my older brother a loan of the Nebraska album. And I guess at that stage I was probably 12, 13 years old maybe. So my brother said to me, "Oh, maybe you want to check this out." And I listened. And I'm not gonna tell a romantic story that I fell in love with it straight away. It sounded very dark. And for maybe innocent 12, 13-year-old ears, it didn't do anything for me at that moment.
And if I could interrupt,
Yeah.
I've told this story multiple times, but 1977, I discovered Brian Wilson and the Beach Boys. Was buying every Beach Boy album I could find in cassette, 8-track, LP, whatever I could find. And when I bought Pet Sounds, I was like, what is this? I don't get this. This is what I just, and today I would rank it as maybe my favorite album of all, but I wasn't ready for do that. So anytime someone mentions about not liking Nebraska, I tell that story because I think you're not expecting what it is and you have to grow into it. I'm sure there are people that heard it the first time and fell in love with it. But I think most of us, it took a while to adjust to that.
Again, I don't know whether for me it was just an age thing. I was 12, 13 years old. So maybe the topics were something I probably couldn't relate to at the time. I don't know. And this was my first taste of Bruce Springsteen, as in knowing the name, right? As I say, I'd known some of the songs before that, but this was the first. So I didn't really know what to think about it. But then obviously within the following 12 months, Born USA is released. And I obviously the first thing I've seen would have been Dancing in the Dark, and it's funny now because I just absolutely love that song. I'll always remember how I felt when I heard it the first time. It obviously had the dance energy. Like I always say, Bruce's music is for your head, your heart, and your feet.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt like Dancing in the Dark made your foot tap. But when you hear lyrics like "I want to change my clothes, my hair, my face," there's something more going on there. It's not just about getting up and this is a great party tune and let's have a dance. There's something deeper going on there. And so I don't know, that contradiction, I suppose, somehow appealed to me. And also he seemed to carry with him some of he was like a little bit of a throwback to 50s music as well. He had, I suppose, that Americana. And obviously I'd grown up on that 50s music. So there was something that just appealed to me.
Yeah.
And when I seen the video, it's corny now. I know a lot of people maybe laugh at it now. It probably hasn't aged too well. But at the time, I just fell in love with it. And I wanted to find out more. So then I went back to my brother's friend who had brought Nebraska to me. And I said, "Oh, I really like this track. Was there anything more you can get from me here?" And the next thing that came to me was, and actually, I think you chatted with Dave Hepworth a few weeks ago. Is that right? Yeah. Yes. I think yeah. So Dave Hepworth had done a whistle test special, hour long, on Bruce in '84, and that was the next exposure I had, and that was the beginning of it. Then from there on, because there was clips, there was the Rosalita clip was in there, and Thunder Road from No Nukes, and The River from No Nukes, Atlantic City video I think was in there too.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I start getting exposed to this, and so yeah. The next thing for me to do then was to get my hands on the Born in the USA album, and that's where it started. That's where it started.
Nigel, sometimes fans will roll their eyes and about Born in the USA, but I always like to remind them that was the gateway drug, so to speak, to many of us. It was what led us to go search out this guy's music. And you think about that, there are songs on there that just stand up to this day. The E Street
100%.
Band takes them and plays them, and I bet you guys have a blast playing them when you guys perform live.
Absolutely. And they're all, to this day, like, they're the tunes that are probably the best received on the
Sure.
night when we play. There are a lot of diehard Springsteen fans will nearly, oh, I don't want to listen to Born to USA. I don't want to listen to Dancing in the Dark, because they probably feel like that they're the songs that everybody listens to. So they
Right.
want to probably distance themselves. But you're right, Jesse. They opened the gateway for me,
Yeah.
and both of those songs will hold a special place in my heart forever and a day. They're not my favorite Springsteen songs. Like, I went backwards. Obviously, start going back into the 70s stuff, and
Yeah.
and some of that is probably tops the chart for me. But yeah, Dancing in the Dark, Born in the USA, My Hometown, Cover Me, Downbound Train, they're all
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Let's switch tracks for a minute and talk about you as a musician.
okay.
What was the first instrument you picked up, and why did you pick it up?
I picked up the guitar, and that's been my chosen instrument. I don't play anything else. I
Okay.
play, obviously, in the Springsteen band, I play harmonica.
Yeah.
But Bruce's harmonica playing is quite rudimentary anyway. It's not too complicated, so it's quite easy to pick up.
Okay.
But yeah, I started playing guitar when I was about 13 years old. Again, I go back. I mentioned U2 earlier on, and when U2 burst onto the scene in Dublin, every kid in Dublin wanted a guitar. They wanted to be the next Bono or the next Edge. So it was maybe 10 years prior to that. Are you familiar with Thin Lizzy, another Irish
Yes.
band? Yeah, Phil
Sure.
Lynott, yeah. So 10 years prior to that, they would have been the local heroes in Dublin. So yeah, so when U2 burst onto the scene, anyone that I know that had a slight interest in music, we wanted to have our shot at the title. So we went out and got guitars. The funny thing for me was I don't remember learning how to play the guitar. It was
Oh,
like
really?
yeah, it's like I always felt that I could play it even before I had one. And I don't
Wow.
really, yeah, I know it's a strange thing, but I don't remember ever thinking that, I don't remember this thing because I see people learning now, and you have to break through that thing of getting your fingers hard, and
Yeah.
breaking through the pain barrier. Brian Adams talks about playing until your fingers bled.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really remember that. I just felt I could play it before I had it. And yeah, it was a short journey. And yeah, I had my basic chords. I always think it's funny when you hear about when Bruce talks on Broadway about just give me the three magic chords so I can twist and shout. And yeah, once I got those first few chords, that was it. There was no looking back. I was on the road from there. And look, once I got into Bruce when I was, say, 13 or 14, the obvious thing to do was to start learning his songs. And I think there was this book. It was called, I think it was called The Complete Bruce Springsteen. And it was the first seven albums. And it was the sheet music for the first seven albums. Went out and I bought that. And yeah, I studied from start to finish. So I was like a Bruce Springsteen jukebox.
What I'm laughing about is little Steven talked about seeing the Beatles
Mm,
inspired them,
yeah,
but when they saw the Stones
mm,
we could be them. We
yeah,
couldn't be the Beatles,
yeah,
but we could be the Stones. And
yeah.
I love that idea that just like Elvis and the Beatles and the Stones, U2 was that for a generation.
Oh yeah,
Right.
oh yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Look, yeah, yeah. It's a terrible thing because I don't know how U2 are perceived in the US these days, but there's a very divided population here in Ireland regarding U2. When they come on the scene initially, there was huge pride in the fact that they were a local Irish band, local Dublin band.
Yeah.
And I remember I went to see them in Croke Park for the first time in 1985 on the Unforgettable Fire tour. It was the very first concert I was ever at. I was only 14 years old. And I remember every minute of it. It was just phenomenal. But but I feel as time has gone on, I don't think time has been good to them. Where Bruce, on the other hand, he gets better with age. Okay, don't get me wrong. I suppose his voice is probably not as strong as maybe it was maybe
Right.
7, 8 years ago, maybe pre-COVID. But that energy is still there. That passion is still there. That the drive. You can see the love for what he does. And I don't think that the same can be said for you two. I'm just wondering, what's the perception of you two in the States? Is it something similar, or
You
is it
know,
like,
I certainly am a casual U2 fan, certainly love the hits and love certain albums. I don't know. I do know that they had a huge, I've had a couple of people went and saw them at the Spear and talked about
yeah,
how amazing it was.
yeah,
It's hard to say.
yeah,
One of the things that makes me sad, Nigel, is almost anything or anyone with today's society, that's crap.
yeah,
There is
yeah,
just that people cannot wait to Mike. Before we recorded this one, I do a Doctor Who podcast,
okay,
and we were just reviewing the latest episode, which had a kind of metal thing where the doctor walked out of TV and saw three fans that were talking about him, and they were, and like they ended up, you gave away the ending and it leaked. I think that's unfortunately, it is quick for people to criticize now.
sure,
It is.
sure.
And
Yeah, you know what? I think back to you two between, say, 83 and maybe 92, and ev maybe with the exception of Rattling Home, because I know they're very critical of that themselves. When you look at The Unforgettable Fire, The Joshua Tree, and Octone
yeah,
Baby, three absolute gems, three
yeah,
gems. And yeah, you know what? Ireland has a. I don't know if I know you have a couple of we've one acquaintance. Brian Hayes is a friend of
yes.
mine. I know Brian was on with you, like, so I know, and I don't know what Brian would say about the Irish people, but they always say we're a nation of begrudgers. You know that
Yeah.
whenever Bono had this, he gave this analogy one time about the difference between Ireland and the US, and he said, in the US, he says, the guys look up at the mansion on the hill and they go, one day I'm going to have me a mansion like that. In Ireland, they look up at the mansion on the hill and they go, one day I'm going to get that bastard. and that, and there's a funny thing. Ireland is a nation of begrudgers. Once somebody gets to the top, we try to knock them straight back down. Once it's one of our own,
Yeah.
and it's something that's in us. It's, yeah, and be interested to see if any of your other Irish interviewees, whether they would think the same thing. But it's definitely something that is a little bit of a flaw in their character.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the first band you're in?
First band I was in, it wasn't anything of any note.
Okay.
It was a band called Blackwater Junction, is what it was called.
Okay.
Funny enough, we were totally fished out of water. It was 1991. I was 20 years old. And in 1991, if you think of the musical landscape at that time, grunge was just about to happen. But I was a Bruce fan. I liked Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I liked John Mellencamp, Steve Earle, that kind of genre, that real kind of roots country rock music.
Yeah.
I loved all that. And that's what we were playing. And we were playing that in Dublin. And we were probably the only bands that was playing music like that in Dublin, because everybody else was wanting to be Kurt Cobain or Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
And so totally fishes out of water. And yeah, so it never really amounted to anything. So it fizzled out after a couple of, maybe about a year or two, it fizzled out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah,
So I always like to preface this question with the amount of times you've seen Bruce perform live is not a fair barometer of how big of a fan you are.
mm.
But are you someone that keeps count? And if so, how many?
I do. I've seen him 34 times. First time in 88 on the Tunnel of Love tour in Dublin, in the
Okay.
RDS in Dublin. And the most recent one, I was lucky enough, I was blessed to be at See Here Now in Asbury Park in
Wow.
last September. Yeah, yeah. I
How
was
did that happen?
funniest thing, Jesse.
Please tell the story.
The tickets went on sale, and I remember the day the tickets went on sale. So that would have been 3 p.m. Dublin time, and I was actually in work, and I was on a Zoom call. So I'm in a Zoom meeting on one computer, and I have another laptop beside me, and I just thought, you know what? the tickets are going on sale for See Here Now. Why don't I just chance it and see, maybe I'll get lucky, maybe I won't, but let's give it a go. And it was very unclear. I don't know what everyone else's experience was of registering for the tickets at the time, but I remember just there was an email that was sent. I think you registered your interest. There was an email that was sent, and then you clicked the link on the day.
Yeah.
And so I got through, and all of a sudden there I had 2 tickets in my basket, and I'm like, oh God, I can't believe this. And I'm trying to pay attention to the Zoom meeting that I'm in, and at the same time I'm trying to buy the tickets. But what happened was, when I went to buy them, then all of a sudden it started looking for me to create an account, which kind of backwards. I would have expected I would have had to do that first. Whenever I expressed my interest, that I would have had to create the account then. So I'm trying to create the account, and I'm trying to add my card details, and all the while that little counter in the top corner is counting down and counting down. And I am panicking now at this stage. And the faster I'm trying to type, the more mistakes I'm making.
Sure.
And I'm looking at 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, down to 0, gone. And I couldn't, and they were gone. I was like, oh, I couldn't believe I actually had 2 tickets in my bag. So anyway, I finished out the registration, and I said, right, I'll try to go back in. So I tried to go back in, 2 tickets, no. Back out, back in again, 2 tickets, no. Out, back in again. I put in 2 tickets, and it said, you have more tickets in your basket than what's available. So I reduced the 2 down to 1, which was crazy, because I'm thinking, surely I couldn't have the last ticket here. But so it allowed me to take the 1 into my basket, and I went and I checked out. So I had 1 general admission ticket for I think it was Bruce playing the Sunday. I think Bruce played the second day. I think it was a Saturday, Sunday. I think Bruce played the Sunday. So I had 1 general admission ticket. So now I was there. So now I'm thinking, I've got to go back home now, tell my wife that I have 1 ticket for See Here Now. Because if I had 2, she was coming to Asbury Park with me, but now I had 1.
Yeah. Did you try buying another one?
I tried to go back in, but
Okay.
it was gone. It was gone.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. So I had this 1 ticket. And again, this story has gone full circle here, because here I am going back and saying how supportive my wife has been of my passion for Bruce's music. But it took me a couple of weeks to break the news. I said, look, I've got this 1 ticket. And she said, 1 ticket for what? And when I explained what it was, I said, look, it's Bruce in Asbury Park on the beach, and I've 1 ticket for it. And he's playing with the E Street Band in Asbury Park. I said, that doesn't happen. There's no venue is going to be big enough to hold Bruce in Asbury Park. And she said, you better get your plane tickets and your accommodation sorted, because you got to get there. And I was just, look, Jesse, I was blown away by the fact that I was waiting for her to blow a head gasket first, but she was, as always, has been 100% supportive of it. And she knows how much it means to me. So so I traveled to New Jersey on my own, but I knew there was going to be people there. Mark and Catherine. Yeah. So in the last couple of years, I've got to know Mark. Actually,
just lovely people.
Great.
Just
himself and Catherine they're diamonds. I must tell you how we all got to know one another. But anyway, I ended up getting over to New Jersey. I ended up sharing. I got an Airbnb. I shared it with Brian Hayes, his cousin. This is the lady he talked about that gave the toy to Bruce in Dublin.
Yeah.
Niamh O'Neill is her name, right? I don't know whether Brian told you her name the last time. But I hooked up with Niamh when we were over there, and we shared an Airbnb. And then we met up with Mark and Catherine and a couple of other people that I met on the day, and that have become friends. And we're all meeting up in Liverpool now in 5 weeks' time. We're going to see Bruce in Anfield in Liverpool. The same crew that was there in Asbury Park are meeting up with our Asbury Park shorts.
All right. I'm going to ask you more about that show, but I'll share with you, not quite as emotional, but similar stories. I had been unemployed for 9 months and got a job that was, after being 9 months, significantly under the market for what I was making, but it was better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
And so about after a year, I connected and someone gave me a job that was back to where the salary I wanted to make. And I'd been there, like, had been there maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
And Bruce announces that he's going to be in Austin, Texas for the book signing.
Okay.
So I go online. There's no way I'm going to get a ticket. And I got a ticket.
Well,
So now then I'm going, how do I tell my wife that this new job I just have, that I want to take a day off to go to Bruce Springsteen in Austin to see effing Bruce Springsteen? Like, I'm not saying anything.
yeah.
And then when I got the job, we had 5 openings. We needed to hire 5 people.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to people and I said, hey, I'm not traveling for the Thanksgiving holiday. So the Friday after Thanksgiving, most people are off work, and it was a holiday for this new company. I said, but if you guys want to come in, I'm not doing anything. We can do anything. So I
Yeah.
did. I interviewed 7 or 8 people that day. So the Monday, I'm talking to Joel, who's my boss, and he said, you interviewed on Friday? I'm like, yeah, I really wanted to get ahead of the game. He goes, if you ever need some time off, we owe you a day. I said, it just so
Nice.
happens. And he says, oh, yeah, you've got to go.
Yeah.
I had to, like, a slight fib to my lovely bride. I'm like, someone gave me a ticket. It was like, because she just would have been, you bought a ticket? Because my thought was, well, okay, if I can't go, I can't go.
Sure.
And I'll give it to someone or things. So yes, not quite as going to overseas, but it
Yeah.
is, yes, the same thing.
Absolutely.
Sometimes our family just doesn't understand the passion. So Mark has said that by far, no debate, best show he's ever seen. I just had John Alba, sportscaster, has seen Bruce close to 100 times.
Yeah.
I just had him on the podcast last week. He said, bar none, best show he's ever seen.
Yeah.
So your thoughts on the show?
Bruce in the Howard Stern interview, he said it was within their top 5 shows,
Yeah.
and I thought that was a big statement. Yeah, there it had everything. It had everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, the location. For me, obviously, the people I was with. Look, Mark's a mega fan.
Yeah.
Mark was in tears at one stage during it,
Yeah.
and it wasn't too far behind them, to be perfectly honest. I'm not even sure. I know the set list was very mixed up. It was like everything was there that you wanted.
Yeah.
From like when you hear something like Thundercrack. I was actually lucky enough to hear Thundercrack one time before at. Do you remember? I was fortunate enough to be at the Madison Square Garden show in 2009 when Bruce played the entire Wild and the E Street Shuffle album.
Yeah.
And he opened that show with Thundercrack. So I'd heard it before, but you think, that's it. I'm never going to hear that again.
Sure.
So when you're hearing the likes of that, obviously, I think does this bus stop at 82nd Street. He done Growing Up. But then even like towards the end, when he played Meeting Across the River, you knew what was coming next.
Yeah.
You knew it was going to be Jungle Land. Now, I've heard Jungle Land on a number of occasions, but it's always beautiful to hear it, and it's reserved for special moments. Funny enough, I was at Madison Square Garden in 2023, where he played. I think it was the only time. I think maybe he played Jungle Land, or did he play it Did he play it at the end in New Jersey at the end of that
but
tour?
Maybe, but it's very rare.
It's rare.
They don't bring it out very often.
No, when we heard Meeting Across the River, you knew what was coming next, and then. And not also, but then to get Racing in the Streets in there as well to have those 2 big anthems at the end, and then Jersey Girl, and there's a couple of other rarities. I think he pulled out Local Hero as well, which was obviously a very apt song. But it wasn't just the set list, Jesse. It was just everything. It was just, I think, the significance of what was happening. Bruce playing with the E Street Band in Asbury Park. People coming from all over the world to see that. It was never going to be a bad day. Never. And I can't even put my finger on one particular aspect of it that made it so great. It was just the collective everything.
As our mutual friend Brian says, and he said the set list is like the score of a sporting event, the match. And it
Correct.
doesn't explain anything at all about what you experienced.
Correct. Yeah.
And I love that when he heard it, and I remember that often when I think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, a couple other shows that have stood out to you over the years,
Well,
experiences.
the other one I mentioned already was the 2009 Madison Square Garden. When somebody asks you what's your favorite Bruce album, and it's probably the hardest question to answer.
Sure.
But the way I always answer this is that when I got into Bruce first, I was buying vinyl, okay, and I had all the vinyls before I think I started getting CDs around 87 or thereabouts, 88. So I had all the vinyls from Asbury Park right up to Tunnel of Love, and then I start going back and buying them on CD. So I got my first CD player, and the first CD I bought of Bruce was The Wild, the Innocent and the E Street Shuffle. So I always say, if I was really pushed and somebody held a gun to my head and asked me what my favorite album was, it would probably be that. I'm not even that second side. Those three songs together, Instant on the 57th Street, Rosalita, and into New York City Serenade. I can still remember the first time I heard that side of that record and actually being blown away. So when I got to that, I actually had that trip to Madison Square Garden booked well in advance of him announcing that he was going to be playing the album. I think they announced it only about a week before. So I just fell on my feet. It was absolutely, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Again, I mentioned already Thundercrack, but New York City Serenade, how often is that pulled out? And for me to hear that, there's not too many fans. I'm sure that's on the bucket list of many fans.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to hear that album in its entirety. So that's one that stands out for me. One other one that stands out for me, and it's a bit of an obscure one, is because most people will always go with E Street Band shows.
Yeah.
The first Seeger Sessions show in Dublin, I don't know if you remember the way that tour panned out. So he played New Orleans first, and then he came to London, and he played. It actually was televised in this little church in London. But the first date of the tour proper was in Dublin, written and produced to be played in Ireland. It's so rootsy. And it was the funny thing because, I don't know if you remember that time, Devils and Dust had come out the year before.
Yeah.
So I guess after The Rising, we were all hoping that we'd get another E Street Band album. And then he'd done Devils and Dust, and we were thinking, okay, maybe the next one will be an E Street Band album. And then it was announced he was bringing out Seeger Sessions, and it was an album of covers. And I remember at the time it was met with a little bit of, oh, okay, maybe this is not what we were looking for. And I remember there was a bit of criticism leveled at him at the time because it was an album of covers and everyone was used to an album of Bruce originals. And so obviously when the show was announced in Dublin, I got tickets because, look, Bruce is coming to Dublin. I'm going to see him.
Yeah, exactly.
But we went not really knowing what to expect. I'm convinced that the reason they came back and done the 3 shows then in November and made the Live in Dublin record was because of that show on the 5th of May 2006.
Yeah.
What's now the 3 Arena in Dublin used to be called the Point Depot, and that's Live in Dublin at the Point Depot. It was rocked to its absolute core that night, and that show ranks highly with me, above many E Street shows that I've seen. That one is right up there. It was just amazing. It was, and I think it was just that level of, we didn't know what to expect, and it was an amazing show. Absolutely amazing show. And as I say, that music was born to be played in Ireland, and the Irish people, if there was casual fans there, they just related to it straight away. And that place was rocking that night. Absolutely one of the best ones was that. Yeah.
So
definitely.
Years ago, my son and wife and I were in New Orleans, and we were wandering, and we ended up walking into O'Flaherty's, which is just down in the French Quarter.
Okay.
And a Danny O'Flaherty was an Irish singer-songwriter, and had the club there. And we ended up, there was two sides to the venue. One was a typical bar, loud music there, and then a little courtyard. And the other side was, and there was this huge sign talking about the tradition of singers and storytellers and how it was sacred. You did not talk while they were performing.
Sure.
And Chris could go, this was one of the few bars he could go into. And so we went in and just fell in love with Danny. He's charming and wonderful. And my son loves, because he went on a slight rant that someone asked him to play Danny Boy, and he lost his shit about how that's not truly an Irish song, that it's an English verse to an Irish tune. And he says, and some of them will do it for the money, but I won't. He got furious. And so Chris loved it. And anyway, so the reason I'm telling the story is after Dublin came out, and Katrina ended up costing him the bar. Just so he had moved to East Texas and he would still perform. So we were in a small town, Lake Charles, where I'm from, and he was playing at a coffee shop. And so we went and saw him, and our friends from Dallas. It was so sweet. And I asked him if he had heard this, and he said no. And I said, I'm going to send it to you. And I sent him Wrecking Ball, and I sent him Live from Dublin. Because I said, I think you will appreciate his influences and what he'll do.
Sure.
Yeah. And then he sent me a very nice note. Thank you. He appreciated it. But yeah, I think it's very much that embracing that background of his.
Obviously, on the last tour of Ireland, obviously Bruce, he met Shane MacGowan, and then he performed A Rainy Night in Soho at a couple of the shows. So he's been very vocal of his love for the music of the Pogues. And listening to that now, you realize that maybe back at the time when he was putting together the Seeger Sessions, he must have had the Pogues in the back of his head, because
I think
some of that music, it's so raucous. It's like there's an Irish traditional band called the Dubliners, and we always said that the Pogues was like when the Dubliners met the Sex Pistols. That's how we used to describe it. That's what the Pogues were, and that raucous.
Yeah. That's great.
Throw in the kitchen sink, the whole lot, man. And it was like, and I've no doubt that obviously Bruce's love for Shane MacGowan must have extended back that far, because there's no doubt there's a huge Pogues influence on that album. Huge. And actually, I think Jesse James, the version of Jesse James that he plays on that album, that's the Pogues actually do a version of that on their second album as well. So again, maybe you heard it there.
So.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
So Nigel, talk to me a little bit about the band. How did this come apart, and brag a little bit about your band?
Oh, look, you know what? There's nothing to brag about, Jesse. I love what I do. It's not, and like we enjoy it so much. If there was 5 people in the audience, I'd be happy playing. Do you know, that kind of way. But
yes,
like when you're in love with Bruce's music the way I have been my whole life, it's the easiest thing in the world to do. So,
yeah, if I could interrupt. Would I like more downloads for my podcast? Absolutely. But I am spending an hour to a brother I've never met in Ireland talking about music. So if no one listens, I don't care, because I've had fun.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, because the audience that comes to see us, I always say our set list will always there's about 10 songs that will always be played.
Yeah.
Because there's always going to be casual people that come along that might just have Bruce's greatest hits.
Exactly.
So you're always going to play Dancing in the Dark, Born to USA, The River, Born to Run, Glory Days, the obvious ones. And so they're always in there. And then the other maybe 10, 12 songs we try to rotate and mix up. But what I was going to say there was that the one thing I enjoy the most is usually when the show is over, I'll go down and mingle with the crowd, just to obviously thank them for their support, but also to see who I can meet, just like I'm meeting you, and what stories I can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that part when I get down and we get down and you get somebody who's just as passionate about the music as we are and really appreciate what we've done in the sense that, look, I'm not Bruce Springsteen. I'll never pretend I'm Bruce Springsteen. There is only one Bruce Springsteen and I'm under no illusion. But you know what? On the nights that he's not going to be there, and that's coming down the road, I'd like to think that me and the band will be able to provide a service for the people that love that music. We touched on, and something that I've probably only found in the Bruce world in the last probably maybe since COVID is I've become probably part of the Bruce community that I didn't really know existed. And so I've met new people, new friends, and you know what? The thoughts that maybe someday we might not have these nights under the stars in Dublin watching Bruce in May or June or whatever month he would normally come. It's a little bit depressing, but we know it's going to happen at some stage. It will happen at some stage. We just know that it's inevitable. And for me, that's my inspiration. That was my inspiration to start the band in the first place. Actually, I didn't start it, but I'll tell you, I'll move on to that now in a sec. But I wanted to start a Bruce tribute band because I just wanted to ensure that when this is all over, that we can still have a night where we can all get together and celebrate the wonderful work of
absolutely
our boss.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my inspiration behind it. Funny enough, what happened was there's actually a number of Bruce Springsteen tribute bands in Ireland already. So when I went to actually start one up, I realized there was 3 there already. And so I was thinking, okay, the island of Ireland is not big enough for 4 Bruce Springsteen tribute bands. So I thought, okay, maybe that's gone. I'm going to have to park that. And I was lying in bed one night and I took out my phone and I looked, and I just happened to be scrolling through Facebook, and there was one of the bands advertising for a singer because their singer had left, right? So I just turned to my wife and said, I'm going to give this a go. And she was like, really? And I said, yeah, why not? But my kids are rare now. My time is my own again. I said, I'm going to give this a go. And so I went up for the audition and we clicked. We just clicked straight away. The guys, we were a 6-piece. The other 5, they're the loveliest people. They are absolute gems. I say this a lot. It's like I'm driving a Rolls Royce. I was given the keys to the Rolls Royce. They're just an amazing set of musicians. And all I'm doing is turning the keys and driving it. They're the Rolls Royce. And I'm blessed to be a part of it. Their passion for the music is as strong as mine. And that's what they were looking for. They were looking for somebody who was going to match that. So it was a match made in heaven, Jesse. And so I've been doing it for they're going since 2009, but I've been with the band for the last 2 years now. Yeah. And it takes up a lot of my time, but I love every minute of it.
That sounds a blast. So
Absolutely.
You guitar and vocals?
Yeah, so I'm Bruce. I'm front and center. Yes,
nice.
I pretend to be Bruce. I'm not Bruce. As I say, I'm not under any illusion. Yeah, so I play. I try to give as many tips of the hats as I can to Bruce in terms of. So I play a butterscotch Telecaster. I play a black Takamine acoustic guitar. I try to dress like him as well. And so I try to do as much as I can to make it as authentic and as an experience as it can be for those that come along. And we have a few videos up on the Facebook page. You should check it out and have a look.
I will.
Yeah.
How do you find the line between you don't want to be a parody and just parrot his music, and where do you find that middle ground between wanting to sing, enjoy, but then also not just sounding someone had taped like an impressionist?
What I try to promote is I suppose, how much of a fan I am. That's what I try to promote. I want people to see that I'm doing this not because I'm trying to make a buck. I'm doing this because I love it. And that's what I'm hoping differentiates me from others. I say I don't really know the other tribute bands that play in Ireland, but I somehow doubt if they have the same level of passion as I have. Although I've said it about lots of other people, and I've met people that have blown me away in terms of the level of commitment and passion they have to Bruce's music. But yeah, just to answer that question again, it is. I just I want to show that I'm a genuine Bruce fan, and that music means more to me than maybe the money that can be made from performing. That's secondary for me. That really is secondary for me. It's not important.
So any thoughts about the new box set coming out? 7 albums.
It's really funny because like prior to Bruce probably has about 400 officially released songs or thereabouts. And with being in the bands, there's only so many songs you're going to be able to play, right?
Yeah.
And you're always waiting for somebody on any given night to come up to you and ask you to play something like, "Can you play Bishop Danced?" And you go, "I could probably play it on my own, but the band's not going to be able
Yeah.
to play it." And now here's another 84 songs now, whatever it is. To add into the mix. So no doubt over the coming year, I'm sure we're going to get a couple of surprise requests for songs that have yet to be heard and yet to be learned. Really looking forward to it, Jesse. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait for it.
Me too.
I love new material. I love new Bruce material. I always have done. And I suppose if I've had one, maybe if there's been one downside the last number of years, is that there probably hasn't been enough new material. So,
I agree.
So yeah.
There's Dallas has one called Thunder Road, and I met the guys, and they were nice enough that I got to attend a rehearsal, and they were talking about it. And then afterwards, I just hit record on my phone, and we had a round table discussing it about why they did this and everything. And they talked about that exactly what you said. We know that we're going to have at least a few people in the audience that are die-hard fans.
Sure.
So we try to find maybe Tougher Than the Rest or something else that we go, this is wide enough that the casual fan will not go to sleep,
Sure.
but we get a little gem. But
Yeah.
yes, there is as you said, there's the songs we're going to do every time, because that's going to get them off their floor, on their seats. They're going to go dancing. They're going to go, and they talk about it. And that was fun. And of course, every time we see them in December, they have to do Santa Claus is Coming to Town. They practice it.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
We do the same thing. Yeah. Last two Christmases, we've pulled it out. So it's great fun to play. It's a great song to play.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What should I've asked you, Nigel, that I haven't?
What should you have asked me?
Yeah. What story do you have in your back pocket that I didn't ask the right question?
The one I always probably, and maybe it's Bruce related, but it's more to do with my dad. I started this conversation talking about my dad. He passed away last year. And I always think my dad was a working class man. We came from a working class background, and there wasn't an awful lot of spare cash there when we were younger. But the one thing I always remember him doing was, and I still to this day, I'm not sure why he done this, but in 1986, when the live 75 to 85 box was released, I'm not too sure now what the retail price was in the US, but
it was expensive.
It was £25 for the vinyl here in Dublin, which if you could look, that probably, I don't know what that equates to now. It probably equates to, I don't know, maybe 100 euros now or whatever. But it was a lot of money to shell out at the time. And so when I knew this was coming out and I knew I wanted it, and I didn't know where I was going to get €25 or £25 from at the time, but it was, if I remember right, it came out late in the year. It was probably around November, I think it might have come out. But anyway, about a week before Christmas, my dad walks in with this under his arm, with the box set under his arm, and he gave it to me. And no idea why. No idea why, because he's an Elvis fan. I don't know whether you could see. Look, we all know Bruce obviously has a huge Elvis connection, and maybe he heard the story about Bruce trying to break into Graceland. I don't know. Maybe, and that resonated with him. I don't know. But that was a big leap of faith for him to go spend that money on me. It's the greatest gift, physical gift, if you like. I've had the gift of love in terms of my wife and my children, and I've been a very lucky man in terms of having them around me. But that gift was the greatest gift I've ever got in my life, because that started me on the backwards journey. So I had, say, Born in the USA. And then when I got, 86, then when I got that, it was like, so then the next thing I done was I bought Darkness on the Edge of Town. And then I bought Born to Run. Then I bought Nebraska. And I start working my way backwards based on the songs that I liked off the 85, 86 album. So I just wanted to mention that. And maybe just because, that was, I mentioned earlier on about how I was exposed to Bruce initially, but that was the moment where that sealed the deal. That was, because that started me on the backwards journey. And some of that 70s stuff is just unbelievable. Darkness on the Edge of Town is, when I heard it would have been side 5 on the vinyl box. So from Because the Night right through to Racing in the Streets. Because the Night, oh sorry, no, Badlands, Because the Night, These Realm, Darkness, and then into Racing in the Streets. And then the flip side of that then was the Nebraska side. And look, I was absolutely blown away by that. And that's my pirate's treasure, that box. I still have the original. I still have it there. And yeah, greatest gift I've ever got in my life. And I thank my dad for it. Yeah.
Mark has told the story about, I'm sure you've heard him tell the story about that box set and how much it meant to him, his mom giving it to him. So I just did a search on Google.
Yeah.
So according to Google, that 25 pounds in 85 is equivalent to 387 pounds today.
Ooh, that is unbelievable.
Now that's Google. I may get it wrong, but that's, yeah.
Look, that's to some people, that's a wage to some people. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
that's a huge commitment for him to make. And you know what? I returned the favor a few years later.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to say I'd done this. When the year he was 70, I was 40 years old that year. And I surprised him with a trip to Memphis, and I brought him to Graceland. Yeah, so
nice.
I repaid the favor. It was the least I could do after him doing that for me. But so I remember we went over to Graceland really early in the morning because the caretakers were in doing kind of maintenance on the ground, and you can actually walk in around the grounds. I don't know if it's still the same way, but this is back in 2011, I think it was. Yeah, it would have been around then. Yeah. And you could walk in around, and I said, Dad, see the wall there? Yeah, that's the wall Bruce jumped over.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, it was nice to go full circle there, jumping away, and just to give him something back. And we had an absolute beautiful morning walking around the grounds of Graceland. And it was just me and him and a couple of caretakers, and I was doing a little bit of maintenance. It was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. Absolutely fantastic.
He's always with you.
100%, yeah.
I lost my mom this past summer.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
She had a stroke a couple years before, so she was in a nursing home, and it was a blessing. It was a blessing. She was not living much of a life.
Yeah.
But I always smile because routinely every few months we'd get a package in the mail before she had her stroke. And it would be just random things she found at garage sales. And someone asked me, because she would, if anything had Bruce Springsteen on it, she bought it. Human Touch cassette, CD, doesn't matter. If it was Bruce, she bought it and sent it to me.
Yeah.
And someone said, what did that make you feel? And I said, it made me smile. Because it didn't matter if I had the cassette. She isn't going to find something I don't have.
Sure,
but the idea that my mom saw that and thought of me and bought it was this long distance hug every time.
Yeah. Look, Jesse, I had similar experiences with my dad in the sense that he would, if he was in the city, say, and he might go into the local, say, bookshop, and there may be the latest Rolling Stone magazine or Uncut or Mojo or something like that, and Bruce is on the cover. Obviously, at this stage in my life, I was self-sufficient and I was able to afford to buy these things myself. But he would still always pick up the phone, and he'd be like, "See, Bruce is on the cover of this magazine. Do you want me to pick it up for you?" And so he was always on the lookout for me. He knew. But look, because he was so passionate about Elvis, maybe he could see I had the same thing about Bruce, and he knew how I felt about it. Maybe that's what it was. But that there. Look, funny enough, I think there was a couple of posts come up on social media today about 2 new magazines that Bruce is on the cover of, and funny enough, that was the thought that came into my head. I would have got that call from my dad saying, "Oh, magazine is there. Do you want me to pick that up for you?"
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Lovely times.
Absolutely. All right. Before I get you out of here, gosh, I'm sorry I've kept you up so late. I feel like we could keep talking another hour.
I could, Jesse.
And we're going to let you get some sleep, but we got to end with a Mary question. So if you're a fan of Nigel's and the band and you're listening this, thank you so much for checking out the podcast. I end every podcast with what I call the Mary question. And what that is, Jay Armstrong, who is an honors English teacher. He's now retired, but when he was teaching, he'd give his students the lyrics to Thunder Road, and they would read it as if it was a poem. And then he would ask his class at the end of the session, do you think Mary gets in the car? So, Nigel, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Okay, so I've tried not to listen to too many of the podcasts. Actually, I usually cut out there so that I don't repeat anyone's answers, okay? But I did listen to Brian's last time, which I thought was very amusing, about Wendy and Mary having the face-off. So that was now, unfortunately, I don't have the same kind of imagination as Brian has, okay? But so mine's a little bit more practical.
Okay.
Do you remember in the Storytellers, the VH1 Storytellers show that Bruce done?
Yes.
And when he described Thunder Road, he described it as an invitation.
Yes.
And he said this was his, and when you open up the Born to Run album, that was the postcard. That was this was the invitation. That's what he said. So he said it. So to me, Thunder Road, I've looked at it as that as the invitation. And then something I've discovered over the years is that, and I haven't heard every version of Thunder Road that's probably out there. I'm sure there's lots of bootlegs that I haven't heard, but the ones I have heard, there's a little subtle change happened around 1980.
Okay.
Right. And the original ones, he talked in the first person singular. It's a town full of losers and I'm pulling out of here to win.
Yeah.
Somewhere around 1980, that changed to we're pulling out of here to win.
Yes.
And I think, and imagine any of the more recent versions are probably the same. So I tend to look at it that, yes, it was the invitation. Thunder Road was the invitation. And in the first couple of years that his audience was relatively small. And I say relatively, because by 1980 then the river was out and it became bigger. So we are the collective Mary. And we got on board. And the lyrics changed to reflect that. So yes, all of us who are Mary got into the car, and we've been on that journey with him ever since. That's the way I see it.
And what a wonderful journey it's been.
Absolutely. I'll drink to that.
Absolutely. Nigel, thank you so much for staying up and visiting with me. Let's do it again anytime. Maybe we get everyone on. Maybe Mark and Brian and you, and we'll all have a fun time.
If you do that, Jesse, I'd say that lasts for about 4 hours, I'd say.
There we go. That would be, I'd love it. Nigel, if someone wants to reach you, what's the best way? I know you sent me the link to the Facebook page for the band. I'll include that.
And that's probably the best way to get me. So, so we're called the Human Touch. But if you key in hashtag the Boss Ireland on any of the social media platforms, it'll take you to, but the Facebook is probably where most of the traffic comes through. Jump on Messenger there, send a message through, and we'll be on the other end. Definitely.
Any final thoughts before I get you out of here?
Only that this was the most enjoyable early morning I've ever had in my life.
I love you, brother.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure,
Go
Jesse.
try
Thanks
to get
for having
some
me.
sleep, and tell your wife that I appreciate her letting me borrow you. Okay.
Thanks ever so much, Jesse. Absolute
See
pleasure
you later.
meeting you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, my man. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Set Listing Bruce. I hope you enjoyed it, and I also hope you check out other episodes of the podcast. I'm going to go through some housekeeping items here on how to contact me and some of my other projects, so please hang around. I'm still on Twitter, aka X, at Jesse Jackson DFW. The show is also on Twitter at Set Lusting Bruce. I and the show have a Facebook page. Please go there and like us. I'm part of a few other podcasts. On Perfectly Good Podcast, me and my co-host Sylvan are talking about every John Hyatt song in alphabetical order. Set Lusting Bruce and Perfectly Good Podcast are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, where we have hundreds of shows dedicated to music. Please check them out. My good friend Charles and I continue to talk all things Doctor Who on Next Stop Everywhere. Lou, Karen, and I talk about pulp culture topics on the JKL Media Podcast. I would love to hear your feedback. Please send me an email to setlistingbruce@gmail.com. You can leave a voicemail, 469-249-2442. Go to iTunes to rate and review any of the podcasts I'm on, and we will read them on the show. Please tell me what you like, tell me what you dislike. Hook me up with someone you think would be a great guest. Getting to talk to people about their experiences, whether it be music or other creative endeavors, is my passion. And I hope these conversations bring you a little joy, a little peace, and a whole lot of love. Keep hope alive.
There's a joke here somewhere. It's on me. Shake this world off my shoulders. Come on, baby, have a laugh on me.